Hi everyone. Um, Hi. I'm sorry about not posting a video for you last week, but I have family and out of town and it just was not going to happen. But I have a video for you now. Yay. I will try to keep these videos pretty short and to the point because I'm noticing that the views are going down and these do take a lot of time for me to prepare. I go through all of your discussion forums and I take all these like notes and stuff, and it takes a very long time to do these. So I don't want to, have it just be a waste of time. I want them to be productive for you. So you can give me some feedback too if you would like about things you want to see. I mean, I have been, this discussion forum, I posted some questions to some of you. But those questions are for anyone to answer. So even if I'm posting a question specifically to one person, anybody can answer the question. So I figured I would do a mix of like putting some questions up on Cougar Courses and then also giving my feedback like this. I mean, I prefer to just give my feedback like this, but I'm trying to, integrate a couple of different things. Okay, so some quick announcements. I am nearly finished grading assignments. I think I still have a few Chapter 2 assignments to grade, and I have a few Black men as criminals and as victims reading analyses to grade, but I think all of your discussion forums are graded. And also to your discussion 6 for week 6 discussion forum. That's the one for this week. As I was reading through them, I just started grading because usually I'll read through them and then I read through them a second time to grade them, but I was like, that's just it's not good time management. So if you see a low score, it's not that that's your final score. It's just that that's the grade that I have already started. I've already started the process of grading, and so you will get more points as you continue to work on the discussion forum. So don't freak out about that. And then speaking of the discussion forum, some notes about points and going forward. I know that we tend to agree on a lot of things in this class, but it's so important that when you are responding to your classmates that you bring something new to the discussion. Saying simply like, I agree, and then restating what that person said, like, I agree when you said this, and then you repeat what that person says. It's just not going to cut it because, we can all see what the person originally said, and it is nice to agree. It's like very kumbaya and like, oh my God, we love each other. But, disagreements are really good. And I don't want you to be disrespectful. I really do appreciate the tone of the class, and everybody's been very nice and very encouraging. And I think that those are all really great things. But it's so important to have questions asked of one another, and it's good because it sharpens your critical thinking skills. So just simply agreeing with someone, it's not as productive. And of course, I can give out questions that will challenge you, but this is a 300 level course, so you should be able to do that well. Do this as well. The other thing I was thinking is, you can always put like, well, I'm playing devil's advocate here, because sometimes I know people feel like I don't want to. I don't want people to think that I completely disagree or that I'm being argumentative. So you could just even say something like, I'm just playing devil's advocate, and then come up with some alternative or challenging response to your classmates. Because simply like, I agree. We could do better, people. We could do better. Okay. So let's move into, I think that's all of my announcements for you. I'm also trying to make these videos a little bit like more interactive, I guess, in a sense. I just learned about cards on YouTube. So I can do these like polls, and there should be like a little info button, and like a question will come up on one of these sides, either on this side or on this side. And so as I'm talking, you'll be able to like click on stuff and give your opinions. And so maybe you'll like that. I hope you like it. Okay, so feedback. Here we go. Getting into the gentrification discussion board. So there were some interesting opinions about gentrification in general, but I think to start off, most of you agreed with desegregating neighborhoods. But then I thought that you did a fantastic job of discussing like the realities of desegregation. Abraham, you talked about segregation that's done by force is not going to be successful, and you're absolutely right. This has already been tried out multiple times. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen most, not just Abraham, but most of you have seen, movies about the civil rights movement, and that was a move to desegregate things. I mean, if you know anything about our school system and desegregation, I mean, the National Guard had to be called in. But this same thing happened around not around the 1980s, in the mid 1980s in Boston. There was a move to desegregate schools, and they had a busing program. My phone keeps going off. Sorry. There was a busing program, and there were riots, and just people were really upset on both ends. I mean, white parents didn't want to send their kids to black schools. Black parents didn't want to send their kids to white schools. It was just a nightmare. So I think that you make a great point that forced segregation, doesn't work. So my question to all of you is, how can we, desegregation, and I think I kept saying forced segregation. It's late. Forced desegregation isn't going to work. Is there a way to make desegregation voluntary? Is there a natural way to desegregate? I want to know your thoughts about that. Celeste, I thought it was interesting. Oh, you're in favor of gentrification. Because you were saying that, with gentrification comes better schools, better city services and conditions and things like that. And I think you make a good point. Is there a way to accomplish better schools, better city conditions without displacing residents? I think I read a lot of comments about, that there needs to be compromise, and there needs to be a way to work together. What does that look like? What is a fair compromise? How do we accomplish better city conditions, better schools, better businesses, all of that kind of stuff, without displacing people, without losing the culture of a neighborhood? And the other thing I wanted to bring up too, is that racial enclaves have been beneficial for a lot of groups. If you look at our own city of San Diego, like I grew up near Mira Mesa, and there are a lot of Asian marketplaces where they sell foods that are specific to like Pacific Islander culture, right? Especially Filipino culture, like balut, right? You can't buy balut at Vaughn's or Ralph's. I mean, you can only buy it at these markets. Same thing with City Heights. There's a huge East African community there. And I used to work at this Eritrean restaurant, and they sold sambusa. You could not get sambusa. I'm trying to think of any place else you can get sambusa. But my point is, you can have these neighborhoods where people can enjoy the foods that they like. They can speak the language that they're comfortable with. They can be around people who they can relate with, especially, immigrant groups. Who need a sense of community. And then it's also a place where people can come and they can enjoy, who are not a part of that community, they can come and they can enjoy that food, but the community maintains its ethnicity and its ethnic practices. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that, sometimes we look at like gentrification, the idea of desegregating areas, that like desegregation is a sign of racial progress, but I think that there are ways to maintain the integrity of a person's ethnicity without rushing to assimilation. I think sometimes we confuse desegregation and assimilation a lot, and I think it's really important that people are able to hold on and maintain their ethnic identity and their culture, and live amongst others, right? And to learn from other people too. We don't want to get rid of those things, right? Angelica, you brought up a good point that gentrification is the opposite of white flight. And I think that goes back to my original question to all of you about how do we create, or is there a way to voluntarily desegregate? Because historically what we've seen is that when people of color move into all white neighborhoods, that the white people in those neighborhoods leave. So how can we solve this issue? And then it's fascinating because you listen to Spike Lee, and it's the opposite, like you said also too, Angelica, that when whites move into cultural neighborhoods, it doesn't have to just be, I know Spike Lee was talking about African Americans in Brooklyn, but even in San Diego, Barrio Logan is a historically Mexican neighborhood, and it's going through massive amounts of gentrification and a lot of residents who have been there for decades are being pushed out. And the culture is completely changing in those neighborhoods. So it's interesting that you could have a certain dynamic that, like, you know, people try to move, people of color moving into all white neighborhoods, they face people, you know, not wanting them there and leaving and being, you know, voluntarily white people are leaving. Then the opposite of when white people come into communities of color, they're forcing other people out. So I just thought that was an interesting point, Angelica. Corelli, oh my God, am I saying her name right, Corelli? Oh my God, sorry. Oh, you brought up that desegregation would actually decrease crime because of interaction amongst neighbors, and you're right. Yes, you know, I saw a lot of comments that, you know, desegregation would increase crime because people would be stealing from their wealthy neighbors. But when you steal from your wealthy neighbor, they see you stealing their stuff, and then they see you with their stuff. So I don't know, that might be kind of tough, right? Most of the time when people are doing property crimes or theft, they're stealing from people who they're not around. You know, that there's some distance there. So I think it would be kind of problematic and kind of hard and kind of, I don't know what other word, because it's late and my brain is starting off. It doesn't make sense for you to steal from your neighbor. I mean, they would see you stealing there, and not, I know sometimes people are not at home, and that's the point when you do a breaking and entering situation, that somebody's not at home. But the idea is that when you have communities that are built upon like interaction, that would lessen the crime because you know someone, and that's gonna, you know. All right, anyway. Okay, and then the other response I got, the class and crime situation. Noah, you responded to this discussion post, and you talked about applying cultural deviance theory to middle and upper class crimes, and I thought you gave a great example. I'm gonna actually read what you posted. Let's see, you said, oh my God. Oh no, I gotta find it. Hold on. Okay, you said, based on anomy theory, I would say that middle class crime could be explained the same as lower class crime. Though crimes are less violent in nature, they generally have the same desired outcome, rising to high socioeconomic status. No matter how comfortable you are, there's always pressure to do better and to achieve more. And I think that that's such a great point, that sometimes people just assume that it's only lower class people who commit crimes out of for monetary reasons. But keeping up with a certain lifestyle also is a monetary reason that an upper class person could use to commit crimes. I know that I used to work for a law firm, and one of the lawyers in the law firm was embezzling from his clients to keep up with his lifestyle. So, I mean, that definitely happens. The other thing too, I'm not going to read your whole response, but you talked about the norms that are involved in deviant upper class communities. And I immediately thought of the affluenza teen, Ethan Couch. Do you guys know who Ethan Couch is? I posted a link under Noah's post with an article about who Ethan Couch is. But long story short, he's this very wealthy teenager. I think he was like 17 or 18 at the time when he was drinking and driving and killed 4 people. 4. And his defense was that he was wealthy, and so he didn't understand the consequences of his actions. He doesn't know, you know, right from wrong, because he's just so spoiled and privileged. And you would think that like the court would be like, what the hell kind of example, like what kind of excuse is that? But it worked, and he was only sentenced to 10 years of probation after he killed 4 people. Fascinating. Okay, so I promised that there would be some interaction in here and some polls, and I was thinking about the first one, or not the first one, oh my God. One of the other things is the difference between upper class crime and lower class crime, and I saw some things about upper class crime and white collar crime. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what do you think is more harmful for our society? What white collar crime or street crime. And a lot of times, again, white collar crime is associated with upper class, embezzlement, fraud, corporate crime. Or do you think street crime, usually associated with violence, drugs, things of that nature, which one do you think is more harmful? I think the little thing should pop up on one of these sides. Give me your answer. And let me give you another question. This is kind of like an analogy, right? Would you rather be punched in the face? I know that sounds crazy, but would you rather be punched in the face? Or a second option, would you rather some anonymous company that you don't know withdraw $40 out of your account every month for the rest of your life? You will never know the reason why. They will just have access to your account and they will take $40 out every single month. So again, punch in the face one time, or $40 taken out of your account every month for the rest of your life. Answer. And that is the difference between street crime and white collar crime. I know you're probably like, how does that analogy work? But it does. Street crime is, of course, very visible, very violent, very aggressive. It's something we're very familiar with. But the odds of street crime happening to certain groups of people is pretty low. I know we like to say that anyone can be a victim, but that's not necessarily true. Your chances of being a victim increase depending on your race, your class, and your gender. People of color are more likely to be victims of violent crime. Poor people are more likely to be victims of violent crime, and males are more likely to be victims of violent crime. So if you're not in those categories, your chances of being involved in street public violence, of course, I'm not talking about domestic violence, and most domestic violence happens between somebody, women are usually involved in domestic violence situations with people that they know. But I'm talking about random street crime that we tend to say like, well, you could be walking around and anything could happen. It's highly unlikely that something's going to happen to you if you're not a part of one of those three categories, and especially the combination of those categories. So, but on the other hand, white collar crime affects all of us, every single one of us. We all have been victims of white collar crime at some point in our lives, and if you haven't yet, the likelihood that it will happen to you is very, very high. So it's interesting that sometimes we're so familiar with street crime because it's, again, highly visible. It's talked about on the news. We rarely hear about white collar crime and how that affects us. So I think that that's why it goes off the hook. And I think that was the other thing that I read in a lot of your discussions about the theories. I can't remember who it was. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But you mentioned that, these structural theories, they don't discuss upper class crime. And it could be very problematic because then it assumes that upper class people don't commit crimes, and we know that that's not true. One of the other theories that I think was pretty interesting is Merton's strain theory, and the adaptations that he has: conformity, innovation, retreatism, rebellion, and ritualism. So another question that I have for you: which of Merton's adaptations do you feel like you best identify with right now in your life? Is it conformity, innovation, retreatism, ritualism, or rebellion? Let me know. All right, hopefully you enjoy these videos. Every time I'm like, this is going to be really short. I look at the clock and it's like, it's been 4 minutes. I'm looking at it now, it's been 18 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't know where time goes. I have no idea. So give me some feedback. Again, if you watch this whole thing the whole way through, I really appreciate it. Say something in your next post like, I watched the whole video, so that way I know that you watched the whole video. And that will help me kind of like ascertain how things are going. Okay, I hope you have a good rest of the weekend, and if you have any questions or concerns, email me. All right, talk to you soon.